Apologies, everyone. We are about ready to go now. Yeah, you start the YouTube feed. Good morning, everyone. I'm Councillor Mike Quigley and Chairman of the Planning and Rights of Way Committee. I'd like to welcome you all to this meeting, which is both taking place here in the Council Chamber and is being broadcast live on YouTube. Agenda item 1, can I move that the draft minutes of the meeting held on the 7th of November, which are included as item 1, can we agree that those minutes true record of that meeting, please? All in favour? Anyone against? That's clearly carried then, thank you. And agenda item 2 is to note the replacement of Councillor Sam Smith with Councillor Gordon Wheeler. Do members approve the change of membership to this committee? All in favour? Anyone against? That's clearly carried then. And agenda item 3 is apologies for absence. Known apologies and substitutions. Councillor Nigel Moxon sends his apologies under the category of other county council reasons, and Councillor Richard Butler is substituting. Councillor Sybil Fielding also sends apologies under the category of other business, and Councillor Pauline Allen is substituting. Councillor Rachel Madden sent apologies under the category of illness and did not appoint a substitute, which was needed to be reported before the meeting started. Agenda item 4 then is declarations of interest by members and officers. Do any members have any interest in any item on the agenda today? No. Any officers? No. Declarations of lobbying. I have not been advised of any. Has anybody had any lobbying on the subjects on the agenda today? No. We move on then to the substantive item, which is removal of condition 10 of planning permission 4V2021-0386 to allow continued use as a small 2-bed home for children in the care of the local authority at 32 Sudbury Drive, Sutton-In-Ashfield. Agenda item 6 is an application to consider removal of condition 10 of the planning permission and to allow the continued use. I move the recommendations are set out in the report, and can I have a seconder?
Formally second, Chairman reserves the right to speak.
Thank you. I invite David Marsh, Major Projects Senior Practitioner, to present the report and any further information that is relevant to the application.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks to remove a planning condition that time limits the use of 32 Sudbury Drive, Huthwaite as a children's home. The current permission expires at the end of the 9th of February 2024, having been granted permission by this committee in September 2021. 32 Sudbury Drive is situated 560 metres to the southwest of Huthwaite Town Centre, on a residential estate at the southern end of the estate Loop Road, and opposite an area of public open space which includes an outdoor play area. Front gardens of properties on the estate are generally not enclosed, with house frontages having off-street car parking spaces and garden planting. 3 off-street parking spaces are provided at 32 Sudbury Drive. There is also a curb-to-curb traffic calming feature in the highway outside the property. Relatively little traffic passes 32 Sudbury Drive, as for the majority of residents, it will be quicker and more convenient to enter or leave the estate along a shorter route. Planning permission is sought to remove condition 10 of a planning permission granted in September 2021, the effect of which would be to allow the property to continue to operate as a children's home. Use as a children's home falls within a specific planning use class, C2, and is grouped with other institutional uses, which can often operate in large properties within grounds. Small-scale care homes, which fall within the same planning use class, and children's homes, can operate successfully alongside other residential uses. A characteristic feature of the use is that there may be additional traffic movement associated with providing care needs, and in this case, of looked after children. In considering the acceptability of the proposed use in this application, the principal planning considerations are the impact of traffic on highway capacity and safety, and the impact of the operation of the use on the character and amenity of the area. There were difficulties in the way in which the children's home operated when the use of this premises first started. This slide shows the likely vehicles associated with the staffing model proposed when permission was granted in September 2021. Although the intention was to operate the home with a staffing model that would require fewer staff and visitors to support the needs of the child placed there, there have been occasions when there have been several vehicles in attendance. Highways Development Control and Planning, Monitoring and Enforcement have been informally monitoring the number of vehicles parked on the highway associated with the use. Although there may have been incidents reported and fed back through resident liaison meetings, they have not been seen during the passing daytime monitoring of the site. The applicants confirmed that the children's home is now operating with the staffing model shown on this slide, and is the model also proposed in this application. It is proposed that there would be one full-time home manager present, with one full-time and one part-time other member of staff present during the day. A single staff handover would take place in the afternoon, with another staff member arriving in the evening and staying overnight, then leaving before the arrival of the home manager the following morning. The shift pattern may result in one car being parked on the road, but it is considered that that would not detract from neighbouring amenity or significantly alter the character of the estate. Since the papers were published, one neighbour has written opposing the development and would like the following comments to be noted. The neighbour writes, "I live a few doors away from this children's home, and in the 2 years that it has been operational, there have been several issues with disruption from this house. I've read all the statements from the County Council about the change of child now living at 32 Sudbury Drive and of the revised parking arrangements. The disruption to our daily lives has greatly improved since the change of child. However, I'm very concerned that in the future the situation will revert to how it was in the past. I pay £279 per month in council tax for the privilege of living here, and I'm very unhappy that this children's home continues to operate. This location is totally unsuitable in the centre of our housing estate. Stated as one of the best in Sutton-In-Ashfield, it certainly isn't one of the best now. I'm not reassured by the comments made by the children's home with regard to improvements to working practices, and therefore wish to lodge my disappointment that the proposal is going ahead. The children's home is currently operating with a child having been placed in November 2023. Although a resident liaison meeting has not taken place since the placement, the last having been in September 2023, officers are not aware of any complaints having been raised. Although a significant number of representations were received when the application was first advertised in May 2023, as detailed in the report, no other representations of substance have been received in response to neighbour notification of the revised proposal, including the new staffing model in December 2023. The application includes a proposed traffic protocol whereby visitors to the home, other than day-to-day staff, are either to arrive by taxi or to park away from the home and be brought to the site and returned by the house car. The details of the travel protocol have yet to be finalised and should be submitted within a month of a grant of permission, should permission be granted, and is the subject of recommended condition 4. A log of all visits to the children's home should be kept, and this information can be used to monitor the effectiveness of the travel protocol. It is recommended that liaison meetings with local residents should continue at 6 monthly intervals in order that any concerns can be raised, with the first to take place in March 2024. Highways Development Control has not raised concerns over highway capacity or safety associated with the way in which the use has previously operated. The application considered in September 21 has initially suggested that the traffic calming feature outside the children's home could be relocated if needed, but was not an express requirement of the permission. With the use in operation having not led to accidents, it is considered that to make the use acceptable, the relocation of the current highway traffic calming feature is not a necessary planning requirement. Although the home appears to now be operating without an adverse impact on the character and amenity of the residential estate following the operation of the recently introduced staffing model proposed in the application, it is recommended, notwithstanding that this application seeks to remove Condition 10, that permission is granted for a further 2-year period to expire on the 31st of January 2026, in order that potential impacts in the longer term can be monitored, with the travel protocol for visitors in place, and with resident liaison meetings continuing, so that matters of concern locally can be raised and addressed. It is recommended that permission is granted, subject to the conditions set out in Condition 1, in Appendix 1. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, David. The applicant has asked to address the committee in relation to this application, and I need to remind the applicant that there's a maximum of 3 minutes, and that they will be advised when a minute is left to speak, and when that time limit has been reached, they must stop immediately. Speakers should not introduce any new material beyond that submitted already as part of the application or raised by officers as further relevant information in the presentation of the report. I now invite Beth Downing to speak on behalf of the applicant, which is the County Council's Children and Families Department, in partnership with Homes to Inspire.
Thank you, Chair. I'm certain members are all too aware of the desperate need we have for more children's homes to accommodate the growing number of children who are in our care as a local authority. We need more of these homes to be in communities. Good homes in good areas is what Ofsted expect and what I'm sure we all want for our children. The home on Sudbury Drive, Huthwaite, is such a home, and despite some initial problems, has been a success. Since it opened in February 20, this was due to the child having a medical condition that could affect any child that may have moved into the neighbourhood, although unusual for a children's home, was understandably concerning to the neighbours. After a few months, the child's needs no longer necessitated ambulance visits, and relationships with neighbours improved. That child received excellent outcomes and moved on as they became 18. Inspectors recognised the effectiveness of the staff team, and despite it being a relatively new and caring for a child with high needs, it was awarded a good rating. We have, however, learned from the early period and would not plan to use the home for children with similar needs in the future. A second child moved in before Christmas and has settled well. Their needs are different. The staffing pattern has changed, which does alter the traffic around the home, and staff continue to park respectfully. Neighbours have not reported any new issues. We are aware of the amenity impact a large number of staff, each using their own vehicle, would have, and it's not in our interest or those of our children to have an adverse impact on the community. We have therefore worked with our not-for-profit partner, Homes to Inspire, owned by the national charity Shaw Trust, who run homes across the country for a number of local authorities, with their staff and with visitors, on reducing vehicle impact through proportionate staffing numbers, car sharing, holding meetings off-site where possible, and the use of parking away from the home. There are 974 Nottinghamshire children in care, and 219 of those originate from Ashfield. 37 of these children live in residential homes, yet there are only 4 children placed into residential homes located within Ashfield. If we had more foster carers, we would need less children's homes, and those foster homes would not trouble the planning process. Unfortunately, we don't have nearly enough foster carers, so we will need to keep opening children's homes in Nottinghamshire, and we can't afford to lose this home. We aim to keep more Nottinghamshire children within the county, close to their families and communities, in good quality homes, rather than the far-flung homes of variable quality which we use, albeit reluctantly, but on which many authorities are dependent. National data shows that 80% of children in care will come from households with incidents of domestic violence, alcohol issues or substance use, and often all three. The young person will have been the victim of this, not the perpetrator, and suffered abuse and neglect as a consequence of it. These children deserve all the support that we as local leaders, public servants and members of the public can give them. Extending the use of this home would allow us to continue to provide more of our children with a better chance in life. Thank you.
Thank you. The County Council representing Sutton West has asked to address the committee in relation to this application, and I would advise that the County Council may speak for up to a maximum of 10 minutes, and again will be advised when a minute is available left to speak, and when that time limit has been reached they must stop immediately, and again they should not introduce any new material than already submitted as part of the application or raised by officers as further relevant information in their presentation of the report. Councillor Hollis.
Thank you, Chair. And I think firstly to thank you for allowing me to speak, and apologies for members for the minor disruption before the committee. I think just a minor disagreement between committee places. Yeah, we all get to spend 15 minutes extra together. That was all. That's a nice part of it. But I really want to start by saying, and this is really important, I strongly agree with the principle of these facilities and homes they provide. It's so draconian to think of these kind of large scale establishments with 50, 30, 40, however many kids, multiple kids in the same kind of facility, and it's so institutionalized, and the kind of style this offers in the in-home care, replicating the family environment, is perfect. And I want to do everything I can to assist with the County Council with helping with that. And I think everything that we've just heard from the County Council officials as part of this largely should be commended, and I agree with entirely. However, if we just recall back to those 3 minutes that we've just heard from the lady sat to my left, none of them actually spoke about Sudbury Drive. They spoke about the actual agenda that we have as an organisation, as county councillors and the county council, to help these kids, and we all want to do that. I made an offer to the county council because the first time I found out about this in 2021 was after the county council had put the planning application in. Not when they were trying to buy the house, but as soon as I became aware of it, I said, look, this is the wrong location for this reason, and I want to do everything I can. At the time, I offered, I'm very blessed to be the portfolio holder for social housing at Ashfield Council. I made the offer at the time to say, I will, if you consider not going forward with this, I will make available 2 council houses in more appropriate locations so we can actually help more kids, but actually work together as organisations. That offer is back on the table because I really want to do everything we can, and that's me putting my mouth, if you like, and actions where my mouth is. But Sudbury Drive simply isn't the right location. If you recall, when many of the members were on the committee at the time, I know we've had a new chairman, etc. since, but we spoke about hypothetical scenarios. If you pass this what may happen. At the time, the county council was trying to get permanent permission. Because of the mammoth objections we have, and they're listed on page 17 of the report, if members have it, at paragraph 48, these are what we thought could happen. And because of those, the county council actually went through the weird scenario of saying we're only going to grant temporary permission. So they changed the recommendations during the meeting. And interestingly, we now be presented with the same recommendations, because clearly the county council acknowledged there's a problem, so they're not granting permission. They want to give the operator and the county council ourselves more time to prove to residents that there isn't a problem. But let's just highlight some of the issues. Since we granted temporary permission, there's been over 80 ambulance visits just to this one property. There's been over 50 police visits to this one property. And this is a very leafy part of the village that is very unused to having this kind of emergency service acknowledgement. Even in the photo that we were produced, it clearly shows that there is on-street parking associated with this establishment. Most residents don't park on the street. All the parking around this is from the facility itself, and upwards it tends to be between 8 and 10 cars. Because something that's not mentioned, but it's touched in point I on page 17, This facility is also being operated as a regional hub for Homes to Inspire. You only have to look at the 50 reams of paper that they get delivered once a month, or the fact that the whole front room is operated as an office. This building isn't just being used as care for this one and now two children. In the report, we look at paragraph 46, which identifies that it's 15 minutes away from the nearest bus stop. Walk. And if we think a young person, 16 and under, 14, 13, however, is going to walk 15 minutes for an hourly bus, I think it's slightly farcical. The whole purpose of these is to give that kind of independence. It's just simply in the wrong location, and that's why I suggest that we really should encourage these places, but buying one of the most expensive properties in Ashfield in a very isolated part, because the report refers to Huthwaite town centre. I mean, every member in this room will know my division, I presume, and know Huthwaite. It isn't a town centre, it's a village. And it's certainly nothing that resembles Mansfield or Sutton. But the reality is there is these kids, pretty much 90% of the stats that I agree with, of kids that are looked after in Nottingham should come from Ashfield. I want to keep those kids in Ashfield, but I want to find them suitable locations. I want to work with the county council, not at loggerheads. But Sudbury Drive isn't the right location, and don't take my word for that. If it was Councillor Quigley's application, or my application, or Joe Blogg's member of the public application, this application would not be heard by the county council. It would be heard by Ashfield District or Broxtowe Borough, wherever it was. Ashfield Council's professional planners have recommended refusal for this application based on exactly the same information as we've received today. That's issued in the report. They've conceded by suggesting that we only recommend a temporary approval if so. But my suggestion to members would be is we already allowed temporary approval to see if there was going to be problems. The problems that we said were going to happen, I would arguably say, are worse than what we originally anticipated. And again, those problems are listed at paragraph 48. We don't want to get off on the wrong foot. I appreciate the county council's rolling this programme out, but Sudbury Drive isn't a good example of this. And I would kindly, respectfully ask members, if they want more information, maybe consider a deferral today, and please come down and visit it. I only live half a mile away. We can have a cup of coffee and we can go around and have a little look at it, but I'm sure Homes to Inspire will facilitate a visit. But also look at the facts. We're suggesting in our own recommendations today, which the chairman has already put forward, that we need more time to demonstrate. Well, we've had since 2021 and 80 ambulance visits, 50 police visits, multiple parking problems which have been observed by residents. We're told that people don't pass it, yet there's double parking. In the original application, we were told that Homes to Inspire and the county council were going to take out the road hump, which was pictured in the picture that we've just seen. Yet it's still there with no effort. That's what we said we wanted to see. And I do find it slightly frustrating, but I think that's probably all I've got to say today, other than to reiterate that we really do encourage, I certainly want to see more of these homes, but this isn't in the right location. And I would ask members to differentiate the need that we have for helping our looked after kids with choosing the wrong location. And if you refer back also to the property price here, this is one of the most expensive properties in Ashfield. We could have bought two houses down half a mile down the road for the same price and helped double the number of kids. That's the kind of mindset I want to be in. But also, as county councillors, I want to work with you all, and I'm only asking you to take my local knowledge into account and my consultation with residents as I would with any of your divisions. This is simply the wrong location. This was the first home that Nottinghamshire County Council have rolled out like this anywhere in Nottinghamshire. We are still learning as a county council. and I think sometimes learning means that we have to acknowledge that we make mistakes, and this potentially is a mistake. It's in the wrong place, and I'm only going to ask members to consider turning it down, but redouble our efforts on what we've learned from this location to actually roll out more of these facilities in Ashfield, in Mansfield, where pretty much all the looked after kids are. And I can hand on heart say you've got every single member of the Independent Groups Alliance support for doing that, and we really believe in supporting this, but this is just the wrong location. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Jazz, do you want to address the committee?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to, before you go into debate, just to address the question of why this is coming before you today. If I can, I'd just like to read Regulation 3, the Town and Country Planning Act, General Regulations 1992. It says, an application for planning permission by an interested planning authority to develop any land of that authority, or for development of any land by an interested planning authority, or by an interested planning authority jointly with any other person, shall be determined by the authority concerned, unless the application is referred to the Secretary of State under Section 77. It says shall be determined. It's not a choice, effectively, in this matter. Just to clarify that one issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Jazz. Do the officers have any other points to address the committee before we move to the debate?
Yes, Chair. I just want to clarify. I think Councillor Hollis said that Ashfield's officers objected to the proposal. Is that correct? The consultation response, which is at paragraph 30, the response that we had from Ashfield District Council was that they'd raised concerns to the original planning application, but in this instance recommend a further permission being time limited for a period of 2 years.
Thank you. No, sorry, I can't allow you to address the committee. Yeah. No, it's only the officers to clarify any points that have been raised during the presentations.
I think it's important to note that paragraph 30 there is a summary of a quite lengthy objection from the council, and I think members can quite clearly read the last sentence where it says they've objected. But obviously the council summarised that in quite a positive way, which I don't disagree with. But obviously it's fair to say that Ashfield Council have objected.
Right, if we move on to debate, before I open it up to other members, I would just like to say a few words, because I think most of you know that my wife and I were foster carers for many years, and visits by the police and so on were not unusual at our house, because we had a very troubled, one of our charges was a very troubled young man, and he actually is in his 30s now, and he's in a semi-secure mental hospital. So we had a challenging time. He knew every police car that operated out of Retford and South Yorkshire, and they were regular visits to our house. So I don't see that as a reason for turning down an application for a children's home, but because it could happen in a foster home just the same. And we also have a private children's home, well, for young adults further down the road from us, which has 6 residents in it. That was subject to a hell of a lot of interdiction from the police in the early days. Eventually the miscreant that was causing all the trouble was carted off in handcuffs in the paddy wagon. So that came to a hand. But the issue is that if you work with the people that are running these homes, then you can resolve issues without resorting to things like that. And I would take objection to Councillor Hollis's statement saying that he could give us 2 council houses. Are we saying that children in our care aren't good enough to live in private homes, but they have to be put in social housing? And I find that disingenuous. But that's my opinion. But I'll open the floor for debate now. Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I remember this coming to the committee 2 years ago, and the worries about traffic, the things we've heard about, the worries about disruption from the residents and impact on traffic were discussed then. but it was also pointed out that you could have a private house where you have a disruptive family for whatever reason, and we've probably all got them in our respective areas, and regrettably that unfortunately is a fact of life, if you like. I actually concur with the thought that Councillor Hollis has and we all have, that we must get away from the institutionalised old big children's homes, and because they were a complete disaster, as we know, and to go and to offer homes here or wherever which do not look like children's homes at all is the right way to go. And I would suggest that most people probably don't know that this house, or indeed any of the others anywhere around the county, are homes for children's homes. For want of well, that's what they are. So I think that we have to live and let live, and there are conditions and restrictions in here that ensure that ongoing concerns will be managed and looked after. I do have just one query, really, just clarification more than anything else. And apologies if I may have missed this in the report, but there's been considerable discussion about the traffic hump, the speed hump on the road outside. And I remember this came up at the meeting 2 years ago. Where are we with that? Because I can't quite remember what the original concern for having a speed hump was. I would have thought it would be quite useful if you got children and families around to calm traffic. But just perhaps a little bit of clarification on that, if we could, please.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. Do you want to come back on that?
Thank you, Chair. When planning permission was, the first planning application was put forward, the applicant was trying to put forward measures which might try to mitigate the impact of a children's home, and at that time put forward a suggestion that they could relocate the traffic calming feature from outside the property to a space equidistant between two other features on the road. Because we were looking at a recommendation of a 2-year permission, consideration was given to whether or not that was an appropriate or necessary matter at that time, and condition 3 of the permission, which was granted, expressly said the traffic calming feature does not need to be done as part of that 2021 permission. So when we deal with this application, which looks to vary conditions, we look at conditions of the original permission to see if they are still appropriate and any measures which need to be included. And although the provision of the traffic calming feature wasn't something that was set out as needing to be done in that application, what we have done is to look at it in this proposal, and with advice from Highways Development Control, what they're saying is, well, if there has been this, I suppose, more traffic generating use which has taken place than what's actually proposed in this application, that hasn't given rise to any particular concerns that would suggest that moving the traffic calming feature needs to be carried out. And that is a comment on that in the paragraph 42 from reporting Highway Development Control's comments. We do have Highways Development Control here. If you do have one further clarification on that. Oh, sorry, paragraph 68. Yeah.
Councillor Creamer.
Yeah, just quickly, going back to the last comment by one of the residents in the complaint, complaining about it. Actually, it said that things had improved and they were genuinely worried about going forward. So I've got no particular problem going forward as long as the work actually continues, a bit like what the chairman was actually saying, if we work together. So from the original application, things have actually improved. And as long as we stay on that track, I mean, I have no particular problem with that. And in my own patch, I have children's homes, almost exactly the same, little private estates, and lots of people, quite rightly, don't know. And funny enough, a lot of them are from the city. So it's Gedling that gives planning permission for those because they're city. But it's exactly the same situation. And as long as we work with them, and there was teething problems with one of them in my patch, which is now fine, and I don't want to tempt fate because things happen all the time, but it's just an ordinary house now where kids are being looked after, decent walking place to the bus, decent area to be in, and it sets the right frame of mind for moving forward for the child more than anything else. So I have no particular problem with this. Ashfield Council itself, regardless of reading between the lines, as the notes between chapter 30 does actually say that they have concerns, but 2 years would be appropriate. And I'd go along with that. The 2 years so far has been positive, and we'll see what happens in 2 years' time, whoever's on this committee.
Thank you, Councillor Creamer. Councillor Henshaw.
Thanks, Chair. Members know that I work with people that have a learning disability, age group from 18 to 65, so they're not children. But in the 80s and 90s, when the long stay hospitals were closing, it became a policy that we would put people with a learning disability in the community. So that meant when the hospital closed, we brought people into residential properties of all types, private, on private estates, in council houses, in flats, in all sorts of different areas. And we did find that there was an objection from people where we were going to move to. Firstly, it was because they didn't understand what a person with a learning disability was or how to react with them. And it became apparent that we had to do quite a lot of work to get residents and people that were going to live around their houses to be involved. And I use that really as a comparison, not as a direct sort of application in relation to this that's before us this morning, because Councillor Hollis is doing what Councillor Hollis and what everybody or every member would do, i.e. we've got residents that make objections to us, and then as councillors we sometimes have to represent those objections. But if, and I think Tom did say that he was strongly in favour of the principle of moving vulnerable children into the community, then I think what we should be doing is, or what he should be doing is looking at this and supporting it. Now, there may well have been problems, and if ambulances are turning up to a property, then the thing that would flash up in my mind is, why is that person or that child, why do they need so many ambulance visits? Obviously there's a problem. But if we're talking about integrating within our communities, because I think it's the right thing to do, children should not be isolated. And like with the learning disability people that I work with, years ago they were isolated and shipped off to hospitals and units miles from anywhere, and people didn't interact with them. Similarly with children that were in care, they went into the big children's homes, which were totally inadequate, but they were of the time. So the time is now that we're looking to integrate children in communities, all communities. And Councillor Creamer mentioned the letter from the resident said that the issues have greatly improved. So to me, that means that the management of the home are working when they find out that there is a problem and trying to resolve the problem. And the problem we found when we were moving into communities is that the more you talk with the community that you're going to move into, the less of the problems you have, because they begin to understand what you're doing. So all I would say is that I think we should support the officer's recommendation, and if there has been a small amount of disruption, then we need to get communication between the home and the resident and the councillor to be improved so that they can iron out problems. But ultimately, I think the child or the children that are living in this place, I think they need a chance, and I would support the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henshaw. Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'm not got a lot to say, but just really I want to back everything that Councillor Henshaw just said. Really, I've got some experience of it. The difficulty is with a lot of the time planning applications come into an area, they see the applicant is Nottinghamshire County Council, and then sometimes the detail of that then stops. And I think local residents don't get to hear exactly what is going off from the off. Setting up those key communication lines between residents and having an understanding locally of what's gone off, not listening to necessarily what is potentially sometimes street rumour, things you hear, but instead actually getting facts, can really help cohesion in those local areas between residents and residents of the properties that we're talking about. And I think that's a real key thing. And I think what Councillor Henshaw pointed out is that as that relationship's gone on and that relationship has developed between those parties, and they have a better understanding of the requirements and developments. And I appreciate now that the child that was requiring a certain type of attendance by ambulance has now moved on. But even so, as the next one comes in, if there are any of those sorts of requirements, I think communicating that is absolutely fundamental to an understanding and developing of an understanding. But also introductions as well. You know, I'm sure it's. I'm not trying to give a sort of a new help guide to the Children's Services Department by any sense of the imagination, but I think, you know, if you're going to really integrate, if you're going to say you're going to put them in a property in an area that is to help them integrate and to help them be used to a community, then you've got to make sure they know that community as well. And I think introducing them to key members of that community and all the rest of it, and the neighbours, and having a real understanding of who they are, I think is important as well to help that cohesion continue, and also help them be a friend also to those children as and when they need it. But like I said, this isn't about rewriting the intro papers to that. I think this is. I also understand Councillor Hollis's points. I do get the idea that as you look in sometimes and you have that level of noise and that, you know, that level of everybody, if you see blue flashing lights, will instantly get up to their lounge window and have a nosy at what's going off. You know, you have a natural need to understand. You know, we all know that blue lights mean emergency, and so we will all look. We will all want to know what's going on. I can understand how they feel, you know, worried about that. So I think, you know, it's understandable that those views have been represented. And I get a lot of this comes down to parking. I can see there is adequate parking on site looking at the pictures. But also understand there has obviously been some overspill, which has caused some issues too. But overall, and on balance, taking all of the different bits and bobs into account and respecting the application's plan to do a review again in 2 years' time, I'll be back in that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adam. Councillor Purdy-Horan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for the interests of transparency, I'm Vice Chairman of Children and Families Select Committee and also a member of the Looked After Children panel on Notts County Council. But apart from that, I have no previous experience of this specific item, apart from perhaps I was on planning 2 years ago when this came towards this committee, but I've not discussed it with anybody at all. So I come with an open mind. Mr. Chairman, I think it is an extremely difficult item. It's come before us, and I completely understand and appreciate the comments and information that Councillor Hollis has shared with the committee, and some of the fears that were expressed at the original application, it would seem, has been experienced by the local community. But also, as other colleagues have said, there are there is now a more modern approach to looking after children, and we can't just throw that out either. What I can say with confidence, Mr. Chairman, is from my experience, the officers that we have in the children's department are extremely professional and sensitive to the challenges that we have in this area, and would absolutely not go ahead with anything without much consideration towards other residents and so forth. And on that basis, I think if we were to reject it today, it would probably present considerable difficulties. I think a time limited extension is appropriate given the concerns that we have seen before us, and I know that the relevant officers will consider that for what goes forward in 2026, whether it is established that a more reasonable use of this property goes forward, or whether we might need to think about other locations. But I think on balance, I'm minded to go with the recommendation in this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Purdy-Horan. Any further? Councillor Owen.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and I'm grateful to the legal officer for explaining to us why this had to come to this committee rather than go to Ashfield's planning committee, which to my mind would have made far more sense. But still, the law is the law, and if it's an ass, we still have to work with it, and it usually is an ass. When this came to committee, getting on for a couple of years ago now, I supported the recommendation. I have to say, I supported the recommendation against my better judgment. And it was against my better judgment because I'd had a similar situation in my own division, which created hell for residents, absolute hell. I dreaded a Monday morning getting a telephone call from the local liaison resident telling me what had gone on at the weekend. But I supported the recommendation for two reasons, I think, at the time. One, that it was time limited, and therefore we could see how the operation panned out. And secondly, because it was an application by the county council, not a private company, but by the county council, who I thought would be responsive to any concerns being raised by residents about the way the property, the home, was being managed. And I have to say, reading the report, my fears were 5 houses. I've lived there for 10 years. And in that 10-year period, I can only remember an ambulance visiting once. Now, obviously, I'm not there all the time, so I may not see. And I think the police have visited over that 10-year period on 5 occasions, and 2 of them were to visit me for reasons that I won't go into because they're not relevant. But it was nothing illegal, I have to say. So let's get away from the idea that this is normal. It's not. In any residential area, it is not normal activity. So we have that ongoing situation. And it's clear to me, reading the report, Chair, that the improvement has not been because of any management effectiveness in managing the situation, despite residents' complaints. It's been brought about because the offending youth, girl, I don't know, it doesn't say who, has been moved, has gone away. And that's exactly what happened in my case, in my division. They closed the home down, they were going to refurbish it, and the problems went away. Now, we're told in paragraph 20, it is felt this home, the home can be run at this location with little impact. Well, if it can be used at this location, operated at this location with little impact, why hasn't it been? That was the purpose of the 12-month permission, so they could demonstrate that it was being used or could be operated without any impact on the local community. And we're given the answer, I think it's in the previous paragraph. It was an emergency situation. An emergency situation that was ongoing for a very, very long period of time. What happens, Chairman, when the next emergency situation comes along? What happens? Oh, it doesn't matter, it's an emergency. It doesn't matter that there's got to be 50 visits by the police, 50 visits by ambulances, and so on and so forth. So I am not convinced. I always apply the me test to any of these planning applications that come. I do it at Broxtowe when I sit on the planning committee there. The me test. And the me test is quite simply this. Is this the sort of activity I would want going on at the side of me? And the answer is, quite frankly, no, I wouldn't. And it's all right for you people to sit around here this morning and say, oh, yes, it's okay, it'll go away, it'll get better. Not when you have to live through it day after day. So I am very concerned about this. And I'm not clear which way to vote, if I vote one way or the other. The only consolation I have, and the residents will have, is that it's for another 2-year period. But I think in 2 years' time, almost certainly won't be here then, but in 2 years' time, it will be the same arguments going round and round again. So I am very concerned about the way things have gone. I find it extremely disappointing that the department has not been able to prove itself in terms of management. It says, as I've already read, the home can be run at this location with little impact. Well, like I said earlier, why haven't you? Because that was what the 12-month permission was for. You have not shown that you can run it with little impact, and it's not you that's had to suffer, it's the residents of that area. And I think it's pretty awful. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Councillor Camilleri?
Yeah, thank you. I agree with most of what people said, and especially the fact that it's always difficult when it's on your division, and wherever you put it, it's going to be a problem. However, if we look at adult care, people with adult difficulties, they can buy a house. I've got 2 on my ward now. Costs £500,000. One person with learning difficulty in that house. No planning permission required. Same parking problems, same difficulties, same ambulances, all come along. You can't really argue against that. You can only help the residents out, work with them, work with the companies, try and make it right. That's what we'll do. I come from a place of high deprivation, and with respect to Tom, I have a lot of respect for Tom at times. I think, why would you move it onto somewhere like Davies Avenue, of course, because it seems a better place to be? Why would you take two social houses that people need to put this person in? Because there's 2 people, there's 2 families. The county council bought this out because they think that this child needs to be brought up in a proper, in a loving area away from that kind of thing, so he's got a chance in life. I think I understand the problems. I get it all. I would probably be against it the same, But in fact, where are you going to put these kids then? What are you going to do with them if we keep going, moving? I'm sorry to be moving from one place to another. This is the second time I've done a socialist speech in 2 weeks, and I can't believe I'm saying it. But we've got to take responsibility for these children, because these children cause us more problems than any other children, and it's our duty not to complain about it, but to do something about it. And I think sat here listening, well, we've got to do something about it. And I agree with Philip. It's bang on. Having things come up my road, ambulances, blue lights, yeah. But what we're going to do with them? Put them in a home, build a big new institution, bang them all away? Can't do it. So we've got to learn to live with it. Perhaps we've got to work better with the officers to make sure it works. But I'm sorry, Tom, because I understand your problem, but I'm going to have to vote for the application. And let's hope that in 2 years' time it's working well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon. Anyone else before we move to the vote? No? In which case, can I ask all those in favour to raise their hands? Those against? I think the application is passed.
Abstention.
Any abstentions? Yeah. Thank you very much. That moves us on to the final item on the agenda, which is the Development Management Progress Report. And I invite Jonathan Smith to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. This is the report we bring to committee every meeting. Appendix A highlights the applications received and determined since the last report to members on the 7th of November. Appendix B reports on the County Council's performance against statutory targets for speed and quality of decisions, which, as you can see, is very good. And then Appendix C sets out the committee's work programme, and it looks like we could have a quite busy meeting in March. So happy to field any questions. Thank you.
Anybody, any comments or questions on the report? Are we happy to move the recommendations as in the agenda? Thank you very much. Then that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes the meeting, and thank you all for your attendance.
Sure.